Hey there, folks. Tim Slade here from the eLearning Designers Academy. Here's the thing. If you happen to know Cara North, I've known her for a long time, then you know she is somebody who has this really amazing way of cutting through all of the noise and saying the thing that everyone else is kind of dancing around. No fluff and no BS. And you know what? That's exactly why I wanted to have this conversation with her, because in the world of learning and development, it's not enough to just create good content anymore. If you want to future-proof your career, you got to learn how to embed yourself in the business, to be seen as someone who drives performance, not just delivers training. Cara is somebody who has spent her career doing exactly that, building real partnerships with stakeholders, connecting learning to strategy, and showing up as a business partner, not just as a service provider. And so in this conversation, we talk about what it looks like to go from being a T-shaped instructional designer to what we're calling an M-shaped learning professional, someone with multiple deep areas of expertise who can flex, adapt, and lead. Now, before we dive in, if you haven't done so already, please make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and bell button to get alerted the next time I publish a video just like this one. And of course, join us inside the eLearning Designers Academy. It's completely free at elearningacademy.io, where we help new instructional designers and e-learning developers grow their careers by focusing on skills first. Otherwise, let's get to the conversation. So I know who you are. We've gone back for so long, but introduce yourself to the group for those of you who don't know who you are.
Oh gosh, I should have prepped for this. I still am so awkward at doing this. So I'll do professional and personal. So professional, okay. Hi, Cara North. I have been in the learning and development space pretty much my entire professional career. Worked in higher education. I had a stint where I was my own independent freelancer, and then I also am currently in corporate America and have been at some of, I think, the biggest companies out there. And I wrote this book that actually tomorrow is the 2-year anniversary of Learning and Experience Design.
Has it really been 2 years?
It has been 2 years. Yeah. So tomorrow's the 2-year anniversary of Learning Experience Design Essentials.
Wow.
Yeah, that was fun. And then I also adjunct at Boise State in their Opal program, and that's been really fun. But personally, I love video games. I live in Columbus, Ohio, and now I have 4 cats, which I don't know how I became that person, but I did. So
yeah. Well, good. Well, I'm so happy to have you. One of the things I really appreciate, and I think a lot of people appreciate it about you, Cara, is that you just have a very no BS attitude as it relates to learning and development, and you're just very straightforward, to the point, and pragmatic about what it is that we do. And I think that's really refreshing, because there's just, I talk about this all the time, but there's just so much noise in the industry, and you do a really good job cutting through that in your own unique way. So I don't know.
Well, thank you. So in that spirit, I'll kick this off by, I hope this conversation, I want to do things a little bit differently. I want to approach this not as a pep talk, but I want to welcome you all to a professional exorcism, because I think if you're hanging your career on, I think, good content in 2025, you're already a ghost and you just don't know it yet. But good news is we can help bring you back up to life. So hoping some of the things that we talk about help you with that.
Yeah, I love that. And we'll get to that. But let's start here. Let's give context to what we're talking about here and how we got here. Because I think, I never heard previously this idea of being an M-shaped professional. And I'll give a little context, however long ago it had been over a month ago now, you posted on LinkedIn this idea of what it means to be an M-shaped learning professional. And I love the post. It immediately resonated with me. And it's kind of this evolution on, when we talk about shaped professionals, whatever the heck that means, I think most people are familiar with T-shaped learning professionals. So I guess let's start there for anyone who's not, why we're talking about M's and T's and shapes. Can we start there? What's this idea of being a T-shaped learning professional? How do you interpret it?
I interpret it as in the same vein if somebody says Addie is an instructional design model. I'm going spicy tonight, Tim. So I think I'm going to go, I don't know, I'll be generous here. Let's say pre-2020.
Yeah.
Being a T-shape, having one specialization, which means, you have some general skills up here, but you're really kind of deep in one skill set, whether that is e-learning development, LMS administration, facilitation, kind of pick what you're thinking here, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm sure you've seen it, and I've seen it. I'm sure everyone here that is watching live or the recording has seen it, and this has been something we've been watching. If you look up what an instructional designer is at 10 different organizations, you're going to get 10 different things, right?
11 of them. 11 different
oh my
things.
God. Absolutely, right? So
Yep.
it's kind of all over the place. And so recently, my current role, I've transitioned in the last 3 months over into a product management role. And I've been kind of upskilling in product. And one of their main things is you need to be an M-shaped professional. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And there was this article I read that I thought was really powerful. And it looked at being an M-shaped professional almost as multilingual, but not in language, but in different areas of the business, whether that's operations, product, legal, tech, because you can't influence what you can't understand. And that's kind of one of the big mantras around product management. And that really hit me and resonated with me. And I
I'm
said,
writing down things.
Oh, I
Keep
think
talking.
no, you're fine. I just thought that was really unique because depending on where you work in the learning development space in an organization, you can be kind of specialized, maybe working for the HR department, operations, whatever that looks like, or you could be in a center of excellence or serving the full enterprise or whatever that looks like. But regardless, you have to influence people and you have to kind of understand a little bit more about what they're doing. So that really spoke to me and I really liked it. And Ketzel, he cracks me up. Yeah, professional screwdriver. That's another way of looking at it. But it's just not enough, I think. And I think we see that from the market and we see that from these job postings that, I can't tell you the last time I just saw a pure e-learning development role unless it was a contract or something of that. I feel like a lot of times it's starting to blend out a little bit more. And God bless you if you go into leadership, because it gets you're wearing even more hats when you transition into those roles. So
well, I think part of
hope that answered your question. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And I think part of that too, when we, even prior to 2020, when we talk about like this expanding definition of what it means to be an instructional designer, I think part of what has initiated that kind of inflation of responsibility has started with the ease of access to tools, right? Like when I think back to like when I was right when I started in this industry in 2009, that was like right when we were starting to get rapid e-learning authoring tools, but there were still people in our company who were using Flash and they were just like dedicated Flash programmers to create e-learning. And we had to use a dedicated production team to do the video. And like you needed these like really specialized people to do stuff. And then like as all of the tools that we use have become easier and easier and no code has become a thing, like all of this stuff started getting put onto our plates. And it sounds like what you're talking about now is like, okay, great, you can create content, we can deliver all sorts of different experiences, but now are you really like synced with the business? Is that kind of what you're saying? Like it's great, it's more than just you can create an e-learning course, you can create a video or be a facilitator. Do you actually understand what you're doing as it relates to the business? Is that an accurate like representation of that?
Absolutely. Sorry, I see one of my dear friends, Peter Pizza Balla, is here. Yeah, I'm going to actually spin it back. So if you're watching live, I have a question for you. Type in the chat for me if you don't care. But I think this is going to help frame it and answer some of that, Tim. So I'm curious, currently, right now, how many of you feel like your current role reflects your actual potential? So go ahead, let me know. How many of you feel like your current role actually reflects your potential? I'm willing to bet that there's going to be, yeah, I got one.
Not at all. Nope.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nancy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, lots in chat. I'm trying to scroll back and
Yeah.
see it. So what does that mean then, Cara?
I mean, that means that, seize the day. If you're not getting what you need in that role, you have more potential to give. You're going to have an opportunity, hopefully, whether you are given it, which that usually doesn't happen. You usually have to kind of make your own opportunities, whether that's in your 9 to 5 or your 5 to 9 or whatever that ends up looking like. But if you're not completely being fulfilled by your potential in your current role, I think you're ripe for kind of transitioning to more of an M-shaped mentality.
Yeah. I think too, I'm curious to get your take on this, Cara. As I was thinking about this idea of being an M-shaped learning professional, like being really good at instructional design and doing design and development, at the end of the day, the business does not care how good of a designer or developer you are. They really don't care. They care that you can offer solutions that meet their needs for the business. And I think, one of the things I'll use this as an example, and then maybe we can equate it to what we're talking about here. One of the things I see a big mistake that a lot of new and experienced instructional designers make alike is they often take a very passive role when it comes to working with their stakeholders and subject matter experts. An example of it's like when they're rating for content. I hear instructional designers say like, well, I'm just waiting for the content. Like as if like their stakeholders are going to go like, oh, here it is on a silver platter. And, it's ready for you to add a next button to, and I think what I'll say to like bring this full circle back to this idea of an M-shaped professional is like, you kind of got to get in the weeds with the business and who it is that you're serving and really understand how they tick so that then that gets embodied in the stuff that you're doing in that design and development phase that they really don't care about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'll even take it a step further. Imagine once you get the content, you spend, I don't know, 2-3 weeks perfecting that beautiful e-learning that you put so much time and attention to. Meanwhile, maybe someone in the tech side or product side built a feedback loop that actually changed behavior in 3 days. So if that happens, guess who's getting the budget next year?
Yeah.
So those are some of the conversations and ways of thinking that I think I don't want to say this and scare people. I'm not in the fear mongering business. That's not where I'm going with this. I really want you to flip it, look at it as an opportunity, and look at it as a way that you can increase your viability in other verticals in the business. So if something does happen to where the learning development budget does get cut, maybe you could pivot to a different role. Maybe you could be a business analyst. Maybe you could do something else, or whatever that looks like in the business to stay employed. I think that's really, really critical.
Well, do you think there's a connection between this idea of really being intimately tied into the business in terms of how you operate and what you know, and that the kind of really being steeped in the tribal knowledge and the business acumen of how your organization operates? Do you think there's a relation to all of that and why a lot of companies will promote internal subject matter experts into learning and development people?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question.
Because like I think about my entry into this industry, like I would have never gotten my job as a training coordinator if I hadn't previously been catching shoplifters. Like I got that job because I knew how to catch shoplifters and I knew what was immediately important to that. You know what I mean? Does it make sense?
Same. No, same. I mean, that was my entry too. I was a really good telemarketer, and then I got promoted into an onboarding training role. So I had the exact same kind of entry story you did. So yeah, I think it's really tough. And I think that's also a little bit harder for me to answer it, Tim, because I do think that there's more certifications, higher education programs that are more getting people in formal education and informal education opportunities than I think there were when we were getting started. So I don't know how that's kind of valued against someone already maybe in the business. I mean, it totally depends on the organization, the hiring manager. Is
Yeah.
it what they're looking for? Are they looking for somebody that, can come in and do something, or are they needing somebody that kind of already knows that business side and they feel like they can upskill in the IB
Yeah.
space? So
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I think about too is one of the things that I've said before in the past is that when I approach a project as an instructional designer, like in order for me to create the most effective learning experience, I almost have to go through the same transformation I'm expecting my learners to go through. And in essence, by time I'm in that project, I'm almost becoming my own SME on the thing because I'm becoming so entrenched in it. And I think a lot of times instructional designers, it's been my experience with a lot of instructional designers, they want to keep like themselves at an arm's distance from anything where they're getting too entrenched in the business, or because it's maybe not their passion or they're not excited about it. But it sounds like what you're saying is that is no longer a viable thing. Like you got to be as a cog in the business as much as your subject matter expert and stakeholder is.
well, I mean, I think the proverbial meme of the last 5-10 years of learning and development is we want a seat at the table, right? I mean,
Right.
that's how you get the seat at the table. You sit with the business, you get to know kind of what they're doing. And one of the best questions that you can ask and really kind of dig in is just asking, can you explain a little bit more about why that is, or digging a little bit deeper, or if you see something that is kind of broken and you're like, I don't really know what to do with that. Why not you? Why not you to at least talk to somebody, right? So, don't wait for someone to bless your growth or give you permission. Look around and say, hey, what's broken that no one is fixing? And there's a lot of things that you can do in the spirit of, again, engaging with stakeholders. You can, get some kind of a meeting together to do like a metrics review or something, and kind of see like what are the metrics of the business, what are some of the things going on, align them to, if your organization has broad goals and OKRs and KPIs, whatever that looks like. Instructional design has a really interesting purview, I feel like, in a lot of organizations, because they're not usually in the C-suite and they're not usually in the front line. So that fresh set of eyes is always something I feel like you can bring to the table. And I love to say that is our superpower, that we aren't so emotionally tied to some of the stuff, that we're able to have some of those conversations. So especially if you feel like, I don't even know how to get started doing that. Well, you already innately probably have a skill set or a way of looking or perceiving something that people that are so entrenched in the business don't have, because they're just so used to just, can't see the forest for the trees.
Right. I guess I had a little bit of an epiphany as I was reflecting on the statement you said, you can't influence what you don't understand. And I think when we talk about, you're absolutely right. Like L&D has been talking for years about having a seat at the table. And I think the way that we've been going about that the wrong way is like, if we can't influence what we don't understand, we can't expect our subject matter experts and stakeholders to respect what they don't get either. Like they don't get what we do. They really don't care what we do. And I think a lot of times we're waiting for them to invite us to the table out of respect of our knowledge of learning theory and adult and instructional design and all that, when in reality the invite comes when we get curious about how their business operates and how they tick, and that's the seat at the table. And them understanding and respecting what we do comes through focusing on that first, rather than I know how to write performance-based learning objectives, so you better respect me for it, right? They don't really care about that.
Right.
So, okay. So my question for you then, Cara, is like, so what do you, one of the comments I think we received when we were first marketing this session, somebody was talking about like, oh, I'm summarizing here. They're like, oh, great, another thing getting added to our plate as an instructional designer. Like, oh, another thing we have to think about or worry about. Like, it's not just learning theory. It's not just authoring tools. It's not just, you know, fixing the copier in the office. Now we got to be like an M-shaped thing. Like, what's your response to that?
We already spin so many plates, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we're already there, right? So inevitably, where you're working at or wherever you're kind of at, you're going to have opportunities to engage with different, hopefully, areas of the business and things like that. So, for example, my biggest advice around that is, you know, if you're wanting to grow a little bit, is do it scared. So I'll never forget. When I was still in higher ed, I got assigned to a project that I did not want to be assigned to. It was a assessment project. My boss on that project actually had no learning development experience. He was a psychometrician, and I had no idea what that even was. And I just kicked, and I was upset, and I didn't want to do it. But you know, I ended up being one of the best things I ever did. It got me really savvy around assessment. I'm obviously still not perfect, but I know a heck of a lot more about assessment than I ever did. I feel like I am a better designer for it. I feel like I'm a little bit more savvy when some of those conversations get brought up in different settings. I'm able to pass that knowledge on to others. And I even made with a colleague of mine made a game, and then we ended up winning an award for it on how to write better assessment questions. So don't sell yourself short. Even if you're just like, you know, I don't really want to work with the finance guy, or, you know, oh, I really don't want to talk to the tech team. They get way too in the minutia or whatever. You know, just be curious. I think a lot of people say that they're lifelong learners, but then sell themselves short when they don't seize the opportunity when it's right in front of you.
I think I love that, like, do it scared. And it kind of, that's very much, and I haven't talked a lot about this recently, just because, you know, it's life's crazy. It kind of reminds me that's like very much a FITFO thing, a figure it the fuck out thing. And I think a lot of times,
oh, we can cuss over here. You didn't tell me that.
Yeah,
oh no. Okay.
It's a figure it the fuck out moment where, like, I think a lot of times as instructional designers, we clasp onto our process and our ADDIE and our steps so much so that we do it to our own detriment. And I'll tell a quick story of, like, I'll tell the origin story of where FITFO came out for those of you who don't know. And FITFO is this idea of, like, you know, at the end of the day, like, whether you're taking on a project at work or you're building your portfolio or you're learning a new tool or whatever, like, at some point you get to a point where you realize, I just got to figure it the fuck out and do it. You know what I mean? And so the origin story of where this came, and it relates to what Cara's talking about doing it scared, is in a past job, I managed this team of instructional designers. And on a Wednesday afternoon, my VP called me and he's like, hey, the executive leadership team, all of the C-suite people, they're having a big meeting on Friday, and they want you and your instructional design team, they want you to design a hackathon for them, like this full day experience. And I was like, we have like less than 48 hours. How the heck are we going to do it? And we did it. We like FITFO'd it, and we created like rapidly this really great experience. And then a couple of weeks later, there was another thing like that where we had to like FITFO a project together. And it came out like it was a really great outcome as a result of it. And I had this, like, it dawned on me that, like, we did our best work when we put ourselves, like, our backs against the wall, because we just had to, like, there was no other option to just get it done and figure it the fuck out. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's a little bit of what you're talking about. Like, doing it scared is like, just throw yourself in the volcano and learn how to swim in the lava. And you're going to realize, I can swim in lava. Holy shit. You know? Does that make sense?
No, it totally does, because just even reflecting back, I think some of my best work I've ever done has been under serious either organizational constraints, budget constraints, time constraints looking back. So that makes complete sense. So
Yeah,
I'm glad that you shared that.
you're gonna throw yourself in the volcano and you're like, I'm fucking surfing the volcano. You know what I mean? Um, so can I ask? Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I've been pinning. So Holly had a comment over here in the chat, and I just want to normalize that you're definitely not the only person that has felt that. So basically, she's kind of at this crossroads and been doing work and really needing mentorship, wanting membership, but then just doing the same things over and over and over again. And it really wasn't that long ago that I was in the exact same situation. I was told, promotions by tenure. Yeah, you're phenomenal, but we can't have you pass over other people that's been here longer to be promoted. I got a load of crap, right? And I remember coming home and talking to my husband, and I'm just like, maybe I'm not cut out for this. And he's like, who are you again? Like, you don't talk like that. But I had this mentor of mine who I was talking this through, and she gave me this really great advice that stuck with me about, why does your mentorship and your career have to only be led by your organization? And then she's like, consider yourself, change your mindset to no matter, even if you're working full time for another company, that you're self-employed. And something about that just clicked with me of, yeah, you know what, I can fire this organization, so to speak, and go get another job. And so that's actually what propelled me to get involved on social media. I was very lucky. I met Mike Taylor very early on when I first moved to Columbus, Ohio. And, he's like, oh, social media is this conference online that like you can learn. And that was back when, before all this stuff happened to Twitter and people were sharing stuff. And then, the conversation at some point kind of moved over to LinkedIn. And I was able to get mentors all across the country. I was able to grow from a leadership standpoint. When I decided I wanted to be a people leader, I didn't have directs at work. And I'm like, no one's going to hire me for my first people leader role. I ended up, volunteered at my local ATD chapter. I ran for president and won. So I was president of a board of directors for 3 years. So when I did interview for my first people leader role, they did not bat an eyelash when all the examples of how you deal with this kind of person, how do you deal with a situation like that, they all came from that experience. And you think people are hard to lead when you pay them full time. Try when you're leading volunteers. It's even tougher, right? So all that to say, Holly, I completely know how you feel. I have been there, but think bigger than your organization. You are way, way, way more important than just waiting on someone to give you an opportunity or a mentor. There's so many wonderful people across this industry that will give you their time, that will help you, that will guide you. You just have to kind of put yourself out there a little bit, but I hope that helps.
Yeah, I like that. I appreciate that message. I think one of the things I learned early in my career is that, like, if you're sitting around waiting for your boss or your company to come validate you, you're going to be waiting a really long time. And don't get me wrong, you'll have leaders that you'll intersect with who will be really, really great. But at the end of the day, like, you gotta make happen for your career what you want to have happen. You gotta do it, and that might mean not waiting to get validation from your current employer or company. Because as I've said ad nauseum, like, your career, anyone's career, it's bigger than that team, that manager, that company. Those things are temporary. You know what I mean? And so, and you don't need to wait for permission to start doing, you want to start doing leadership, then go find a way that you can influence leadership. You did that through your ATD chapter, do that through how you mentor people on LinkedIn or what have you. That's how you elevate yourself, Yeah.
Yeah, no, and how do I put this? I mean, you went there with the F-bomb. I'm not going to go there, but I, not everybody has the best intentions when you're out there swimming around. So just be very cautious of who you give your time and attention to on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Not the greatest gift you can give somebody is their time. So I appreciate all the wonderful people just here, even live, or if you're watching the replay, I realize that time is a gift. And so
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that gift with me. But you don't owe people anything around that. So if it's not working, or if you talk to somebody and they're pressuring you to do something, there's more people that will help you in the sea. So I don't know if that was subtle enough or not, Tim.
I have another acronym for that, FURUs. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yes, that's
So
a good
like,
one too.
yeah, be careful of the fake gurus. I think that's what you're saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
In not so many
absolutely.
words. Yeah.
And there's a difference between coaching and mentoring, you know. So I actually, right before this call, had a call. I have a leadership coach that I meet with, and I pay that person for their time. None of my mentors ever asked for my credit card number.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Good. I appreciate that. So let me ask this. I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this. So you mentioned at the beginning, like if you've claimed your stake on staked your ground on creating content, you better watch out, right? And I can't help but to feel like a little bit of that has to be influenced by the fact that AI makes it so easy to create content nowadays. I mean, like I guess my question is, what's your take on this intersection between being an M-shaped professional, being a content, an order taker, course creator? Like, is there an intersection there as you think about what you meant by that? Can I ask that question? Does it make sense?
yeah, so I think what I meant by that is, if you're just, and you've talked about it already, Tim, but if you're just kind of sitting around waiting to be told what to do, I feel like your stakeholders might see you as like I don't know, a human version of a Canva template or something that maybe it's
A
like easy
human
to
chat
duplicate.
GPT.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're the person that can walk into a stakeholder meeting, translate their business pain into some kind of a learning blueprint, and here's the kicker, and I'm glad that we're getting a little bit better about this as an industry, bring the data to prove it, I think you're a little bit more untouchable. So kind of that transition between a T and an M for me, it's not really just about like what you do, but it's like who you can confidently influence, and what of these high risk conversations that you're trusted to have. I think that's a different mindset. Like you're part of the broader organization. We talk about this a lot in my current organization of like, can you see yourself in the priorities for the year? And it's a really hard conversation to have with people that are maybe just creating videos or whatever. Maybe they don't see themselves in it. But if you're like, hey, these videos helped upskill this department, and it saved this amount of money, and it saved customers this amount of time or whatever, that's a different conversation, right? And I think so often we're so busy, we just focus on, okay, got this video done, what's next? Got this video down, next, take the time to actually do a retrospective. Take the time to actually walk it back a quarter. Hey, last quarter we did blah, 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 blah. What was the impact of that? How can we trace this back? But of course, to do that, you need to also align it in the front end and make sure that whatever you're building has some kind of alignment to a business outcome and metric, which is, again, easier said than done, depending on where you're at in the organization. If your leadership enables that, et cetera, et cetera. I get that. But I think those are really important conversations to have.
I think a little bit of what you're hinting at too is like, and we don't do I don't think we do a good enough job talking about this in our industry on LinkedIn or at conferences, but like you got to learn the politics of your organization, and you got to learn how to play those politics. And to your point, like if you want to be an indispensable resource, then you need to be indispensable to your stakeholder or subject matter expert. Because I think a lot of times what people don't realize, like in one of the last organizations I worked, a lot of our L&D payroll was funded not through HR, but through our stakeholders. And they ultimately were the ones who like held the purse strings for whether or not we had a position on the ID team or not. And so the more we made ourselves indispensable to them, and the more likely they respected what it is that we were doing. So okay, so before we get to the Q&A thing, I guess there's a question in chat that I want to ask. Like, how do we learn the business side of things?
Like, I was typing a response. That's so funny. Great minds. Yeah, I actually, it is a little bit harder to do sometimes, depending again where you're at. I worked at organizations where they've had mentorship programs, so I always try to get a mentor outside of my area. So maybe talk to somebody in risk and controls, or talk to somebody in legal, or whatever that looks like, so you can kind of get a peek, underneath the hood of what it is that they do. I have another mentor of mine because my ultimate career goal is I want to be a chief learning officer. And they told me very early on, it's not enough to just know learning and development. You have to know the business stuff too. And so I think as much as you can upskill in just general business acumen about, again, dashboards, I think product's a great way to kind of dig a little bit deeper into things. Even just basic financials, right? Like a great way to get started if you're currently employed and you work at a publicly traded company, pull down the last shareholders report or something like that. And if you need help reading and understanding it, kind of float around. Hey, ask your leadership, hey, if I wanted to learn a little bit more about the, guts behind this, who could I talk to or whatever, lean into them. I would hope to goodness that at your organization, people would support that. But again, I also live on planet Earth, and I know for every one good people leader out there, there's 2 bad ones. I think that is an actual stat. I totally just made that up, but at least that's been my experience. But I
remember I worked at an organization once that one of the things our leadership team on our L&D team did that I really appreciated is every time we would do a quarterly team meeting or a monthly team meeting, they would bring the company's profit and loss statement, and we would talk through it. And I really appreciated that because this was when I was working at Kohl's. I don't have to be cryptic about it. And one of the things our VP always reminded us that I so appreciated, he's like, we all have to remember at the end of the day, we're in the business of selling socks and underwear. That's what this organization's about. It's not about creating the e-learning course or the leadership training. We're selling socks and underwear. And so we have to be really targeted about how do we sell more socks and underwear and Sonoma shirts that are going to fall apart after one wash? You know what I mean? Okay. I think here's my take on that question. How do you learn the business? Just go spend time with the people that you're supporting in the business and ask questions. I mean, this last company I worked at before I started my business, I spent the first month, I went on a little tour, and I went and I took all of my stakeholders out to lunch, and I just tell me what you do. How do you do it? How do you measure it? What keeps you up at night? It had nothing to do with do you need a course? Do you need training?
Yep.
I just went and talked to them, and then I went and observed them, and I in a weird way, I was I'm gonna be like an intern. I'm gonna intern with them and then and learn their business. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think a lot of L&D people don't do that. They don't go spend time with the people that they're trying to support within the organization.
But okay. I've been in organizations where people haven't had access to that too. You had to fight tooth and nail, So, I mean, it is, we're talking obviously about things that you can do. But again, I am a realist, and I have been in those positions where you don't have the autonomy or the structure to support that. And that is a little bit harder.
Yeah, I think it's important that we acknowledge too that a lot of what we're talking about is going to be very much dependent on the culture that has been created by those that lead your learning organization. You know what I mean? So how much influence you have, how much you can go knock on people's doors, um, is going to be affected by that. But I've also like learned that, yeah, like, what's the expression? Like, I don't know, not shoot or kill first and say sorry later or something. I don't know what it is, but you know what I'm saying. Like, go do it, and then like if you cross the boundary, like you can always apologize later. But like, you know, I'm horrible at expressions, but even if you don't feel like you're enabled to, stop waiting for somebody to enable you. Go talk to those people. You know what I mean?
And
And
here
if you
I thought
piss,
I was going to be the one in trouble tonight and be the
yeah.
most spicy.
And if you piss somebody off, if somebody gets mad at you, then they're showing you that maybe that's not a place you want to be in the long run. You know what I mean?
Amen. Amen
Okay.
to that.
We have about 15 minutes remaining. Let's do a little bit of the Q&A, and then
Awesome.
we'll go from there. So I'm in the little Q&A pod. So this one comes from Anonymous. What's the best methods for becoming M-shaped? So I guess how are you building your M-shaped, um, I don't know, skill set for what you're doing, Cara?
Yeah, so I think kind of organically, again, like I mentioned the assessment example, I had an opportunity to work on a project and learn more about it. Another kind of peak that I'm really passionate about is accessibility. So I still need to schedule it, but I'm going to get my digital accessibility certification. And I've been a part of organizations where we've been able to actually test with various users. And I actually had a contract that I worked on a couple of years ago where we actually had users that use a sip and puff, like to actually go through the course. And that was so awesome again, I learned so much from that. So I think kind of if you're wanting to build that out, you want to I think just kind of experiment and read and talk to other people. Just like I mentioned with the job postings, if you go to pull 10 different instructional design or learning development job postings, they're all going to have different language and different things that they're looking for. I'm a big believer in, building a community, talking to people. This is a wonderful community here that Tim has. Talk to other people about, hey, what's some of your favorite things that you like to do? And you can expand on that in the learning and development space. But more likely than not, there's people that have other various backgrounds and, gifts. So I have a friend of mine from grad school who was a data analyst, and I was just always enamored by all the great things that she said and did with that stuff. And now I think she does all kinds of cool stuff, but that's not the point. I really think you just need to kind of talk to people, see what kind of feels good, experiment, try something. If you try something, read about it, and like, you know what, that's not for me. No harm, no foul, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things that you can specialize in a little bit heavier that complements instructional design that I think will make you more of an asset, not only to your own career, but also your organization.
Good. All right. Awesome. Okay. Next question comes from, I'm going to see how I can spotlight them.
Oh, cool.
Denitra, sorry, my contacts are being weird. What strategies do you use to proactively decide which skills you want to build without chasing trends? I'll start with this one because
go ahead.
whenever I do a panel discussion or people like the one question that I always hate is like, well, how do you stay on top of trends in the industry? And I'm like, I don't try. And I've said this before, and Carrie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Like every year, every 3-4 years in this industry, there is a new trend and a new shiny object to be chased. And whether it's gamification or M-learning or micro-learning or I'm missing one of them that I've heard before. But right now, like the trend is AI and everything's AI. But now we're starting to see, like, if you've been paying attention, they're slowly, like, we're coming off the hype cycle of AI and we're coming back into reality a little bit. And so I'm very much one of those people. I wait until it comes to me. And I'll give you a really great example of this. Like with AI, like if I were following the shiny object, I would be obsessing over AI agents right now and how do I make agents work when they're really like they're not working out the way they're supposed to. But what part of AI has come to me? Like I use ChatGPT every single day. I generate some content with ChatGPT or I brainstorm and it came to me that way. You know what I mean? So I wait until it comes to me in a practical use case sort of way. I don't know. What's your take on that, Cara?
I'm kind of the same way. I think the way to approach it is, maybe dip your toe in the pond, right? Don't spend a lot of money. Don't invest. So, uh, did I go there? Yeah. What was the Apple VR headset thing that people were
Yes, the
losing
Vision
their
Pro.
minds? Yeah, people were losing their minds over that, and I don't know. I haven't seen anybody really use it in the learning space in an innovative way yet. But that doesn't mean that's not happening. So I think I think your advice is solid, Tim. Just kind of wait and see what happens. But yeah, I guess I'm kind of an old soul in the learning and development. A lot of the stuff I like are the classics because I feel like they don't go out of style. So
Yeah. I whenever you see a shiny thing, here's another shiny one right now, like vibe coding. Like vibe code
oh
something.
yeah,
I know wrong. You can do some really cool stuff. Like you can vibe code all sorts of cool things. But then like you have to turn around and go, yeah, but is this going to be practical in a real world setting? Is this going to really hold up and work? And where are actual working practitioners doing the things that are being shown here? And then like when you notice that disparity, that's when you notice, oh, that's hype, not a reality thing. But like I'm a pragmatist in that sense. Like I'm not somebody I'm not a futurist by any stretch of the imagination. I'm looking for things that like work today on the job. So maybe I'm the wrong person to ask about that. All right. Anne wants to know, I'll spotlight her question. Anne wants to know, as a new instructional designer, what are the best ways to start becoming more M-shaped? I don't know. Do you have thoughts on that, Cara? Like, how do you
yeah. I
translate a new practitioner to that expanded
Well,
role of
brand new,
instructional
you're
design?
probably still drinking a little bit from the fire hose, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I would say before you go there, get a good solid foundation. Last thing you want to do is just try to take something else on and then not get good foundational skills because you're really going to set yourself up for failure and nobody wants that. So I would advise depending on kind of where you're at. Now, if you feel like, hey, I got the fundamentals, I'm ready, maybe start looking at things that maybe complement learning and development. So Mike Taylor and Bianca Bauman just released a wonderful book around marketing. That might be a place that you start. Data skills. I don't think that that's going away anytime soon. That might be a place to start. I think accessibility is so important, and it's finally getting some of the love. I love it. That's another place to start. So maybe look at things that would complement that, and then if that feels good, maybe invest a little bit more. If that doesn't feel good, then maybe take another kind of step out. I'm equating this to like a pebble in a pond kind of thing, right? Like you're tossing
Mm-hmm.
and you have little rings and ripples. I hope that's helpful. What do
Yeah.
you think, Tim?
I think that makes sense. I like the idea of like complementary things. Like if you're working on, if you're focused on internal L&D, well, then maybe look at like what are the customer education team doing and how are they doing it differently and how are they aligning their work to the business. There's so many complementary, or HR and human resources has so much overlap, or organizational development and leadership. There's a lot of like peripheral things that intersect with L&D that the more you look at it, the more you realize there's a lot of opportunity there where you can expand your career outside of just being a course creator or developer.
Absolutely.
And I think going back to the previous question, and for you, Anne, like if you're new, I think the number one thing that would be detrimental is when you're new and you're chasing the hype and the trends, because like at the end of the day, you still have to be able to do the basics of the job. And the basics and the fundamentals of what you're talking about, Cara, are not hypes and trends. And the
Right.
basics and the fundamentals will get you much further than, hey, I can vibe code confetti into a Rise course. It's cool. Don't be wrong. Like I'm wanting to learn how to do confetti in my Rise course, but like that's not going to be the thing that makes or breaks my viability in the marketplace. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. No offense to confetti, or putting them in your courses. All right. Let me look at some of the questions here in our last few minutes. I like this one. What were the most surprising conflicts, issues you've had with stakeholders and SMEs, and how'd you handle them? I have a really funny one.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I have one too, but go ahead.
One time I had to work with a stakeholder who I can't remember what the course was on, but we had this long debate over the word effect versus effect. And effect with an A versus effect with an E. And those have two, effect is like the effect of something. Effect is like doing something with something. And this person was adamant that effect with an A just didn't exist as a word. So everything had to be effect. And like I had to bring over my coworker who was the English major and like explain to them that effect with an A is an actual word. Oh, I have another one regarding VR, but I'll let you go, Cara, and then I'll tell the other one.
All right. So I had a request for training when I was in manufacturing about how to hold the product that we were manufacturing. And something just didn't feel right with me. And the reason it came up was because the product was getting damaged, very high dollar product going out of our factory. And, I was like, can I just come see? And so this was actually right in the middle of COVID. So I had to wear this like bunny suit and, kind of get out. It was kind of wild. And I went out to the part of the plant that had this. And I saw these folks that were putting the product on this really tall wire rack. And when I saw the folks that were assigned to do that, they were like me. They were vertically challenged. And I'm like, well, it's no wonder that they're if they have to stand on their tiptoes or whatever. I was like, have you ever thought about getting like a little step stool or maybe getting a shorter shelf? And guess what? They did the shorter shelf and defects went down. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
But it was they were so angry that I just wouldn't shut up and give the resources to make a course. But then,
Yeah, I have a kind of a similar one. One time, this was when I was working at my last employer before I started my business. We went and toured a call center at another company to see like their training and how they onboarded all of their call center employees. And if you've ever worked in a call center environment, like it's the first and last time I'll ever do call center training. And we went to their training center, and their training director brought us into this room, and they were so excited to share with us how they had invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in these VR headsets. Okay.
Oh boy.
And what the premise was is like the call center employees can go into here, put on their VR headsets, and then with the VR headset, they can tour the call center floor. Like they could virtually walk around it. That's all you could do with it. And they had like spent all this money to create this 3D virtual environment of the call center, like where you would sit and answer phones all day. And we're like, that's cool. And they created it because somebody important went to a conference and like played ping pong with a VR headset and was like, we got to do VR headset training now, right? And so like the weird thing was like the call center floor that they were touring in this virtual 3D environment was like right there outside the door. So it's like, if they want to tour it, like, why don't they just go tour the thing that's standing? That's right. It's like right there. We don't need to that's a perfect example where like hype and shiny objects like infiltrates learning and development in these really not fit for function ways. So that was fun. Okay. We have time for one more question. I'm looking. Oh, I like this one, and I think we can both answer this one real quickly. Denver wants to know, as someone who does not know much about the business aspects of learning and development, what areas of the business would be helpful to start learning about? Where the money's made.
Yeah.
That's it. Where does the
Yeah.
money come from? That's where you go look. Because that, like, what you will quickly learn is every decision, everything comes back to who makes the business money. Because ultimately, those are the ones who make the decisions. They get all the power. That's where you can get money to if you need to get something funded, where the business money's made. Would you agree with that, Cara?
Absolutely. And I'll go a step further. Who has control of the money at your organization?
Yeah. Yep. And sometimes it's where the money's made, and sometimes it's some random VP for some reason. Okay. Thank you so much, Cara, for joining us. Where can people find you? I'm sure you put your LinkedIn chat or something, but
Yeah, so I'll put my LinkedIn in chat. And then if you liked this conversation, I'm working on kind of another venture talking more about this, because I think what is going to unite us through all of this is just us going back to what makes us humans, the connection piece of what we do. And a lot of the work that we do in this space gets done because you build relational equity and relationships. So if you're curious to learn more about that, I'll put a link here in the chat for genuinerelationships.com. So stuff to come. If you're interested, you can put your email address in there. And then once we have some stuff, we'll send it your way if you're interested.
I cannot wait to check that out. Thank you, Cara. All right, last thing I'll put in chat, and then we'll say our goodbyes, is we do all sorts of different events in the community. So sign up for our future events. Every the first Thursday of the month, we do just a community office hours. It's just to come hang out. And then we do these occasionally throughout the month. So thank you all so much for joining. And Cara, thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's been a blast. And again, thank you everyone for giving me the gift of your time this evening.